Are you there? Hello?
Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com, and this is episode 232 of the Longbox Review comic book podcast. Today's episode is Quemments. I have questions and comments from various people on the interwebs, as well as, and this is the reason for doing this episode, Sergeant America, whom I know from Twitter, back in September, started sending me voicemails to the Longbox Review voicemail number, which you can also do by calling 208-953-1841. You can leave voicemails. You can send me text messages to that as well. So please do so. But anyway, Sergeant America sent me some voicemails, like I said, starting in September. And so I thought I would I would address them, and then I would just build this episode around them. And so I asked for other questions and comments on social media, and several people obliged over time. And so I'm here to talk about those things that they asked. So here we go. So first up is the very first voicemail from Sergeant America.
This is Sergeant America coming at you. Boom! Hey, I got a question. You seem to be an aficionado on Hawkman. I was just wondering, does he need the wings? Is it just the wings? I remember seeing the cartoon. I always thought he had the actual hawk head, but I guess maybe he doesn't. In the Arrow show, he was just a guy. Is he strong? Is he super strong? Is he bigger than strong? Does he need the wings? Is it just the magic metal? I figured maybe you could tell me something on their next show, because I got to figure this out. Anyway, hope you enjoy your day. Catchphrase.
Okay, Sarge, thanks for that. So Sarge must be thinking of episode 148, where I discussed my love of the character Hawkman and the first issue of that 2018 series, which was drawn by Brian Hitch and written by Robert Venditti. Okay, so to answer your specific questions, does he need the wings? Is it just the wings? No, it's not just the wings, obviously. It's the nth metal, or in the early appearances, I remember reading that it was called ninth metal, or that was retcon stuff. I don't remember now, but I remember it's changed over time, and now it's become nth, NTH, nth metal. And so he needs the nth metal because that provides the anti-gravity flight. But the wings do, supposedly, depending on, I guess, the artist and the intent, provides maneuverability and guidance. And they can also flap for some reason. I guess because it looks cool. Because he's Hawkman, and so therefore, his wings must work. But mostly they just look cool. But the magical nth metal, or magic-like nth metal, I guess, also gives him extra strength, durability. It provides heat, because he's bare-chested for some reason. You would think that harness would chafe, but maybe because of the nth metal, he doesn't have to worry about it. And also apparently enhanced vision, like a hawk. So anyway, regarding his helmet, Sarge said he had the actual hawk head. I always found the way that artist drew the hawk helmet, I always thought the way where the eyes were in the wrong spot for where Carter Hall's, or Qatar Hall's, depending on which age we're talking about here. Although I guess now it's all one and the same. Anyway, the eyes were not in the right place. And so I always thought that was off, but maybe that's on purpose. I don't know, but regardless, it always looked to me like there's no way for Carter to see well through that helmet, through the eyes of that helmet. But that's just me, perhaps. Okay, let's see. Anything else? we talked about the strength, magic metal. Yeah. So I think we got that one wrapped up, don't you, Sarge? Okay, next up I have this question from an Englishman in San Diego. This is from Hive Social. A while back, I had on Hive Social, because they have a question button feature. So if you press that, I guess it does something magical and people can ask you questions. I don't know, because it's not working. It's broken. So I said, I basically, does anybody have any questions for me? And an Englishman in San Diego responded and asked, what was the first book you got your hands on and you suddenly looked down and realized, oh crap, I'm a full-blown collector, capital C now. Okay, so I had already responded to him on Hive Social, but I'll reiterate here. I knew, and I've talked about these comics before because they were they were not my first comics that I read, because I read Richie Rich and I'm blanking on Archie comics and other comics like that. I had read a bunch of those, but one fall evening back in 1978, I went to a corner market in this really dinky small town in Washington called Mattawa, because that's where my mom moved us after her divorce. And there were some comics there at this place. And I bought, let's see, Amazing Spider-Man number 187, which is basically it was a team up with Captain America, and they fought Electro. That was really cool, and the Amazing Spider-Man television series was on television at that time. So of course, I'm sure that's the reason why I was like, oh, I gotta read a Spider-Man comic. I also bought Avengers number 177, which is, I believe, the finale to the Korvac storyline, in which Korvac kills all the Avengers and the Guardians of the Galaxy and reservists, and I don't remember who else. But then, in a selfless act of a final act, he restores everybody's life to a certain degree, and Thor becomes Dr. Donald Blake and starts treating his patients. So I mean that's. And it would be years before I would go back and find and read the entire story, that entire Korvac story. So, your first comics, you just roll with it. You don't have to start at number one with everything and read everything from there. Anyway, and then the third one that I got was a Marvel Tales comic, issue number 98, which reprinted, of all things, Amazing Spider-Man number 121, The Death of Gwen Stacy. So, everything that led up to that story I had not read. Still haven't, quite honestly. I have the books, I just haven't read them anyway. So, I've got this wonderful adventure comic with Spider-Man and Captain America, where I first learned about the bubonic plague. I mean, the comics taught me a lot, and that was one of the things that I learned about before I learned about it in school. The Korvac saga, the death of everybody, and the death of Gwen Stacy. I mean, come on, that's how could you read those comics and not go, oh my God, this is amazing? And so I knew then that I was in love with comics, and I would read as many as possible and for as long as possible. And here I am now, 40-something years later, still reading comic books and still loving comic books. If you're curious, I did write about those particular issues in a little more detail in my Secret Origin blog post from October 2009, and then also on episode 194, Comic Book Memories from May 2021, if you're curious to learn more, although I think I gave you a pretty good summation of those things. But anyway, all right, I have another of Sergeant America's voicemails, so let's hear what he has to say.
Got another question. I'm just sitting here thinking, have you ever eaten while you've been reading a comic book? I mean, are you white gloves, fold the page just right, make sure nothing happens to it? Or, sometimes you grab a dollar comic, get a couple buffalo wings, gnaw on it while checking out whatever great deal you got for a dollar. It's just running through my head, man. I was wondering. I got to know. Are they kept pristine? Do you make sure there's no crumbs in the bag? Or, are you taking them into the lavatory and reading them there? I mean, that's where I get a lot of my reading done. Tell me. Tell me, Long Box Review. Tell me, Eric.
Okay, comic book reading etiquette. So this is this is something I've dealt with for I'll just say half of my adult life in regards to my comics, because when I eventually met and then married my wife, she showed a little bit of interest in my comics, and so plus I wanted to share and give her things to read so that we would have something in common to share and hopefully love. I wanted her to love comics like I do, right? That didn't happen, but and I think sometimes I wonder. I should probably ask her this. Sometimes I wonder, was it because I said, "Okay, here's this comic," and she took. I remember this distinctly. She took this comic. I don't remember what the comic was, but I do remember what I saw. She took the comic and then she folded the front cover as she was reading it. She folded the front cover around to the back and was holding it like that. And I said, "Oh my God, don't do that!" Maybe not so emphatically. But I did ask her not to fold the cover like that. I'm not a white gloves reader. I don't. One, I don't like things. I don't like my hands to be dirty. I don't like things on my hand. They dirt, anything sticky. Can't stand it. My hands have to be clean, and that's just a personal thing. Has nothing to do with comics. That's just me. Because oils on your hands. If you're eating something, I try to avoid all that stuff when I'm reading my comics, because I don't want to damage the comic, and not because I'm concerned about its value or anything. I just like my stuff to be in good condition, in pristine condition, if at all possible. And there have been times, like in the summer when it's really hot out, right? And I'm holding a comic book that has a black cover. This has happened a few times now, where it's mostly black or something like that, or a really dark cover. And I'm reading the book, and maybe my hands are a little sweaty because it's so hot, right? And then I got done, and I turned put the book down, and I noticed, oh, there's a smear, a little fingerprint smear on the. So, yeah, no white gloves, but pristine. I will admit that sometimes I'll sit down in my comfy chair to read comics, and I will have a drink there. I may have a snack or something, but if I am eating anything, no matter what it is, I will wipe my hands off before I pick up that comic book and read it. So to each their own, I suppose, right? Yeah, I just don't. No, and there are certain foods I will not be eating if I'm going to be reading comics. For example, Doritos come to mind. Anything with like a powdery substance that applied to it like that, which may be delicious, most likely not nutritious, but also it's very bad for my reading experience for comic books. So. Basically, if you need a napkin afterwards, it's a no-go. Unless you're like me, you're going to wipe your hands off every time. So, all right. Let's see here. Reading in the loo. We'll come back to this one. All right, on Twitter, Sleepy Reader 666, my friend Damien sent me a couple questions. Let's see here. The first one is, how has your shift to more trades, less single issues been going? What are your thoughts on the different formats these days? Okay. I actually, so I've been doing this now for, I don't know, a couple of years, maybe 3 years or so, where I started transitioning away from single issues, mostly not because I found the trades a better reading experience or whatever, I've run out of room. And I've talked about this before. I have no more room. And with the trades at least, so this is what I was thinking. With trades at least, and there's another reason too, but they're easier to put into boxes if I want to, and store them in different ways than comic books in my drawer boxes. And so, plus, if I find I don't like, or I didn't like that particular graphic novel or that trade or that series of trades, I can get rid of those more easily. I can donate them to the library. I can give them away. I can, whatever. Go to take them to the used bookstore that we have in town and get credit for it, or whatever. I can basically repurpose them much easier than I can do. I found than I can do the single issues. So there's that, and also with trades, given the prices of comics, collections tend to be, on a per issue basis, cheaper if you wait and buy the trade. And so I'm looking for ways to save space. I'm looking for ways to save money. I have found that I actually much more enjoy reading a storyline all at once in a trade collection, as opposed to waiting, 30 days or more sometimes, as far as the reading experience goes. So, yeah, I'm enjoying it quite a lot. Also, I feel like I am reading more variety of comics. I'm not sure why I feel like that. I don't think that my buying habits have changed. Well, in terms of how much I'm spending, but I seem to be, I don't know, I feel like I'm buying different things more than just, the typical superhero fare and whatnot. So I'm not sure if that's because I feel like I'm spending less because I'm buying trades. I can buy more trades. I'm not sure. Now that I'm thinking about it and I'm breaking it down, it doesn't make any sense. But when I wrote this down, that's how I was feeling. So as far as the different formats these days, I'm not sure what you're asking specifically, Damien. Are you meaning like in terms of different formats, singles, trades, digital, oversized? Like for example, some of the DC Black Label books, they're oversized comics. The way that they package things in like omnibuses or essentials, things like that. In that case, if that's your question, I love the variety. I'm looking actually as I'm recording this, I'm looking at my bookshelves that contains all of my unread trades and graphic novels and some other things that I have read that are still on the bookshelves, and I've got a bunch of omnibuses. I love the Marvel Essentials. That to me, you get a good chunk of comics at a great price point for the most part. Omnibuses are, it depends on how big they are, but some of them are just kind of, the what is that? The gutter loss of some collections, and this goes for trades too. Because I can't fold those out like a regular comic book. So that's one thing I don't like about collections. But just the ability now. Like I was saying about the Korvac thing and the Gwen Stacy Spider-Man storyline and all that stuff. I have those collections now, and which back then when I first started getting into comics, it was really hard to find those issues. So I feel like today that we have such a wealth of available material that I love that, and I have gone back and bought a bunch of collections for things that I've wanted to read and could never easily get the single issues. So that's another great reason for reading stuff in collections or in graphic novels and stuff. So, all right. He has a couple other questions here. Is Dick Grayson still your favorite character? Who would be in your top 5 characters? Favorite characters, I assume. Okay. Is Dick Grayson still my favorite character? Yes. I like to say he's my favorite superhero character. But when I think of, like, if I'm going to give you a top five, and this is my top five right now. Just when I was putting together this list, I basically just who are the characters that I read in comics or have read in comics over 40 years? Who are the ones that jump to my mind immediately? Well, Dick Grayson, number one, top there. Superman, number two. Daredevil, Brainiac 5, and which I found kind of curious because I've said on the Legion Project, I've said in other episodes whenever the Legion has come up, that Ultra Boy is my favorite Legionnaire. And that is true, but in my mind, it's always followed up very closely by, but also Brainiac 5. And so when I was, like I said, I was putting together this list and I was just kind of just writing down whatever, first came to mind, right? And so I was actually kind of surprised that I said Brainiac 5 and wrote that down. So apparently Brainiac 5 is my favorite Legionnaire, and I've just been lying to myself about it all these years. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Ultra Boy. I still love Ultra Boy a lot, but I think overall that I've changed my mind about that. So maybe something I'll have to talk with Peter about on the Legion Project sometime as well. Anyway, and then finally, Kachu from Strangers in Paradise, and then also more recent related comic books that Terry Moore has been putting out. I have long been beating the drum of Strangers in Paradise. It was such a good series. So again, I'll do that again. If you've not read Strangers in Paradise, and then like I said, the more recent stuff that Terry's been putting out, featuring those characters, especially Kachu, you are missing out. And so that's, she's such a good. She's a beautiful character. She's a kick-ass character. She is an emotional roller coaster of a character, but she's so much fun to read. So much depth to her, and interesting things happen to and around her. So from a storytelling standpoint, she's just a wonderful character. So those are my top five. Damien, what are your top five favorite characters? And also, I'll take this opportunity now to thank Damien for a separate comment that he put out on Twitter, saying some nice things about the show, which I very much appreciate, Damien. Thank you so much. Okay, here's another voicemail from Sergeant America.
So what's up with this Richie Rich kid? I mean, is nobody watching him? He gets in all these hijinks. I mean, it's a lot of money there. Shouldn't somebody be watching this kid? Me personally, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm a Heathcliff guy, So maybe some Garfield. Garfield got me through most of my book hits when I was younger. I think about that. I sometimes still want a bucket pizza. The comic book shop should start running that deal. Read X amount of comic books and you get a free personal pan pizza. That's $1 million deal right there. I'm giving that one to you. I hope you enjoy your day. Catchphrase.
Okay. I used to love Richie Rich comics. For some reason, Richie Rich, Archie, Dot, was it Dot? Was it Wendy, the one that's dressed in red? She's a little witch. So all those, and there's some other ones. I can't remember now. It's been so long. I've not read a lot of those comics in decades. But I love those. Those are my kind of my gateway comics, if you will. But I never felt the urge to collect them. So which is why I don't really count them. So they were like proto comic book collecting to me. Anyway, but Richie Rich was one of the ones that I used to read a lot. And I'm not sure, but it was because did I like them more than the others, or was it there were just more of those around at my cousin's house, which is where I read those, at least that I recall. so I liked Richie Rich. I think, well, thinking back on it, I believe it has more to do with less with Richie Rich as a character and whatever hijinks he was in it, but it was more about fantasizing about being like him, having that much money. What would I do with that much money? And I remember I do remember having conversations with one of my cousins about that too. It's like, well, if you were as rich as Richie Rich, what would you do, right? And so, what would I do? What could I do with all that kind of money? Which, I would give a very different answer now than when I was, I'll say, 8 or 10. But obviously, besides buy more comics. If I had that much money, if I were like these, like Bezos and I don't know who else is really rich. Oh yeah, that twerp that bought Twitter. I would donate a bunch of money. I wouldn't hoard it like these a-holes. That money could go to better use, giving it away to help other people. So anyway, okay. But I have a bone to pick with you, Sarge. Heathcliff, really? Nah, dog, nah. I never liked Heathcliff. I distinctly remember Heathcliff the cartoon, and never liking it. I mean, I watched it. Maybe that was one of those things where, back when I was growing up, back in the old days, kids, we basically had 3 channels, and I watched whatever was on because that was all I could do, unless I wanted to go outside and play, which I didn't really want to do. I wanted to stay inside and watch cartoons, eat my bowl of cereal on the weekends, and read comic books. Anyway, but I do remember watching Heathcliff and going, I don't like this thing. So I was more of a Garfield kid, reading the comic strips. So yeah, there you go. But I do love your comics book it idea. And so just in case people aren't familiar with the Book It program, this was something that Pizza Hut had. It was a reading incentive program where elementary school kids, when they reached their reading goal, that was, I guess, set by their teacher. I never got to participate in it, but my kid did. So we did this. But anyway, when they reached their goal, they would get a certificate for a personal pan pizza. And so my daughter, when she did it, when she reached her goal, and she did it quite a lot. So we would go to Pizza Hut just so she could get her personal pan pizza. So I remember doing that, and that was so much fun. Because I besides comic books, as a kid I read a lot of sci-fi novels, some fantasy stuff. I was a big reader as a kid, and so I wanted my kid to be like that. And she really did turn out to be like that. But this Book It program was a way to kind of but to promote that with her. And so, I'm all for bribing kids to read more. I think that's a great idea. So back to your comic book or comics Book It idea. I'll take it, Sarge. Thank you. I appreciate that. I will take it. I'll see what I can do with it. And, if it happens to make me some money, I'll gladly reimburse you with a certificate for a personal pan pizza. Okay, another question from Hive Social. This is from Nick. Nick asked me, "What's the best page turner you've ever read?" And so, Nick, I'm not sure if you're asking page turner in the context of it's something that I can't put down, or are you talking about an actual page turn? What's the best page turn I've read? So, not knowing clearly what you're asking about, I'm going to answer both of those things. So for in terms of a page turner comic, something that it's like I have to devour this. It's so good. I can't put it down. Let's see. I'm just going to go with some things that just came to mind recently, or things that I'm reading recently. And I've talked about some of these before, like in my favorites episode, and some other pull list reviews as well. But the Reckless books were like that because I had 3 of them just on the shelf waiting to read. And once I started, I couldn't put them down. And as soon as I got the 4th, which was shortly after that, after reading the 3rd one, I had to read that. So those were page turners to me. The Iron Man, the recent Iron Man series that ended with issue 25, written by Christopher Cantwell. Again, I talked about most of these in my favorites episode, favorites of 2022 episode. But because I had read, what did I say? I read issues like 2 through 14 in basically one sitting. Well, technically not one sitting, but over like 2 nights or so, I read all those issues because I was like, oh my God, this is a great story. I kept reading and reading and reading. The series Human Target, the same kind of a situation. Yeah, because I I'm gonna be repeating myself. I had not bought the single issues because I was waiting for the trade, and so I went out and found the first 4 issues, and I read those as like, oh my God, this is so good. And fortunately, I had already at that point pre-ordered issue 5, and that came out shortly, and so there you go. And it's also, I was also kind of thinking in terms of books that I am really looking forward to reading when they come out. At least the ones that are like single issues. Well, even one of these is I'm getting in as trade collections. So it's like the anticipation for these books. If it's something that I'm really looking forward to reading, that's partly why I put it on this list. The next one is Silver Surfer. Started because I had bought all of the digital collections years ago, and there are 4 of them, right? 4 or 5. Anyway, I started reading the first one because the Comic Book Couples Counseling CBCC podcast, they were teasing an interview with Dan Slott about the series, and was recommending people read the series before they listen to the episode. I'm like, oh, I want to listen to that episode, and I've not read this. And so I started reading that. And then same situation with Iron Man. I couldn't put it down. I had to keep reading until I was all done. So over the course of a night or 2 or 3, I read all those. I felt that way about the Star Trek Year 5, but that I was getting that in trades. And so that and the series Friday, which only has 2 volumes out, but there's a 3rd one that's coming. I feel the same way. It's like once I started reading, I couldn't put down. I couldn't put it down, and I was so much looking forward to the next volume. So, kind of a page turner situation there. So there you go. Those are the ones that leapt to mind when I thought of that particular context. For the other one, the best page turn. So one immediately came to mind. No, both of these immediately came to mind. And I'm sure there are others. I know there are others. I couldn't think of them, and I didn't want to have to do a bunch of research for this. So, but the 2 that I immediately thought of. The first one was Animal Man issue 19 from the 1980 88 series, written by Grant Morrison. It's the I Can See You page, where you turn the page and you see Animal Man's head, which is about the same size as normal heads, my head, and he's looking right at you, and that's when he says, "I can see you." And so I mean that story kind of blew my mind. That was my first, my first major introduction to the brilliance that is Grant Morrison. Or the confusion that it's Grant Morrison. So anyway, the other one, so like I said, I thought of that. I Can See You. And then immediately another quote from a book, but that scene in Watchmen number 11, said by Ozymandias, I did it 35 minutes ago. So, I mean, I remember when I first read that after it was published, and I'm like, oh my God. This is not your typical. Well, I mean, by issue 11, I already knew that this wasn't your typical superhero story, but it's like all the heroes are together, and they're confronting the villain, but he's already executed his master plan. There's no stopping it. They've failed. I loved that. That's just that was a wonderful page turn. Not quite the same impact as the Animal Man one, because I think, if I remembering correctly, there's a few panels before you get to that revelation. But I still say that counts. So, all right, I have the next to last voicemail from Sergeant America.
Hey, I've been on your website and I've been clicking on this box about cookies, and I haven't seen cookies all week. So as soon as you can get those shipped out to me, I'd appreciate that. If you do milk, I'd also appreciate some skim milk with that. Ice cold is the way I like it, but looking forward to the cookies. Thank you.
All right, let me tell you about cookies, Sarge. Here in town, we have, and I don't know if this is something that is, I don't know if it's regional or what, but there's a Crumble cookie shop. Crumble spelled Crumbl. I know, cute marketing thing, right? Anyway, there's a Crumble cookie shop here in town. And my wife told me about it because I had, what the heck is Crumble cookie? Why would you want to eat a crumbled cookie? Anyway, so what they do specialty cookies, right? I don't know. They're famous for their pink icing sugar cookie, and then and their chocolate chip cookie, and then they do a bunch of specialty. And anyway, every week they do 5 or 6 cookies that week, and then they rotate through a bunch of different ones. And so you have to go to their website or go into the shop to find out what they are serving that week. Anyway, so she told me about the shop. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then she told me how much it costs to buy one of these cookies. Now, granted, this cookie is like, I don't know, 4 inches wide, 4 inches in diameter, or something like that, 4 or 5 inches, and a good almost maybe 3/4 of an inch thick of the cookie itself. And then when they add, like icing and stuff on it, it could be even like an inch thick sometimes. So big cookies, but she told me how much they were, and they're like, I don't know, $3 or $4 a piece. It's ridiculous, right? For a cookie. Anyway, she bought some because she wanted some. Madison wanted some, and whatever. Let me try it. Oh my God, they're really good. I have had, and I went looking for this because a few months back they had a particular cookie, and I'm kicking myself now because I cannot remember what it was. And like I said, they rotate through, so sometimes some cookies will come back in several weeks, and it was maybe the best cookie I've ever had in my life. Yeah. So good. And in fact, there was one this last week, as I record this, in this last week, they had a maple bacon cookie. So it's a sugar cookie with this maple frosting, and they actually put bacon bits on top. It was delicious. So if you hate to advertise for people, but if you're if you have a crumble cookie nearby, maybe give it a shot. Anyway, and I agree with you, Sarge. Ice cold milk, always the best. Always. All right. Sleepy Reader has another set of questions. This is from Hive Social. Do you have a favorite place or spot to read comics? See, now I mentioned earlier that, I'll sit in my cozy chair and read comics, and this is in relation back to the food thing. But there are 3 spots in my house that I like to read comics or just do read comics. One is in my office where I'm sitting right now recording this, and I'm surrounded by comics. Like I said, the bookshelves in front of me, I got 3 bookshelves that are all basically completely full of comics, and about half of those are unread. So I got those. I'll sit in my desk chair here, and I'll just sit and read comics, and I enjoy those. And plus, I can put them on my desk and then put them away easily because they're right here. Don't have to pack them around anywhere. The other one is I'll read my comics in my bedroom upstairs, and because I have a sleep number bed and it reclines, and I can do that. I quite often will read my digital comics in bed and not elsewhere, not in the other spots, just because that's where I keep my iPad for the most part. And it's just something I can do real quick. I could read a comic or two before I go to sleep. And so that's probably my least favorite place out of the three. But I still do it out of convenience mostly. And then finally, my favorite place is as you could probably guess, my cozy chair, which is in the living room. It's a recliner. I have a little table that I can set my comics on. And I sit there, sit back, put my feet up, and I'll read comics. And sometimes I'll put some posts on social media as I'm reading them. It's quite convenient and easy, and I can sit there. Sometimes I'll listen to music in the background while I'm reading them, but usually not, because sometimes I get distracted and I find I miss things when I'm reading if I'm also listening to music. So anyway, so there you go. Those are my favorite spots. Next question he has: do you own books that you are starting to suspect you'll never read? Well, not specifically. Because I'm not ancient by any means, but I am getting, I'm into my 50s now, and I have fewer years ahead of me than I used to, and so while I'm not specifically concerned about it, I have a lot of books I need to read, a lot of stuff, and so the plan has always been, when I retire, I mean, I will continue to read, obviously, until then. But when I retire, that's when I can, put my feet up, relax, and read everything. So yeah, it is a concern, but it's not something that greatly concerns me at this point. So, but I think I know why you're asking that question, Damien, and I'm with you. So, last question here. What are your thoughts on 70s Legion stories and the 60s ones? Okay, just general. And while I am a huge Legion fan, I've not read every issue of the 60s Legion for sure. And I've read a lot, but not everything of the 70s. But having said that, of the 70s, I love Grell's art. I mean, it's not Grell wasn't my first exposure to the Legion, but when I discovered I loved the Legion, I started buying back issues when I could. His was the art that I was drawn to. So I love his art on like the Superboy and the Legion stories in the 200s or so, as I recall. I'm thinking specifically of things like in the 200 teens. Area that I love reading those, mostly for his art, and that that stuff kind of really cemented my love of the Legion. Before we got into let's see, what was it? 275 was it? Yeah, 275 is when I started collecting Legion issue by issue. So. And then as far as the 60s, for the ones that I've read, and I've read quite a few now because of the Legion Project podcast with Peter, as we see connections, or there are direct callbacks to stuff that happened in those 60s era books. And let me just say, those things are bonkers. Just how mean the Legionnaires are to each other. The kind of like the retro future sci-fi kind of stuff is a lot of fun, but also doesn't make any sense. It's pseudo science magic stuff, but it's fun. It's that all the stuff that I love about the Legion, that's where it all originated, and then it became, well, I mean, it was kind of a melodrama from the beginning, so but it became more of a soap opera, like in the 70s, with the relationship stuff and whatnot. But it's all good. It's all Legion, all good stuff. So, all right. Next up, I have a question from Peter on Twitter. Peter being the host of the Daily Rios and, of course, my co-host on the Legion Project podcast. What are your holy grails for your collection? Single issues, probably, if you still have such a list. Well, while I have, over the course of 40-some years of collecting, I have filled the gaps in my collection. For example, some years ago, I finally was able to get all issues of the Miracle Man run. I spent a pretty penny on a few of those issues, and this was some years before Marvel reprinted those in those hardcover collections. So, but there was a point in my comic book buying and collecting where I felt like I needed to have the full run of issues for a particular title, or even just a particular subset within a title. And so, and I'll talk about that in a second because there's actually one of those related to that. But now I'm not so driven to get those issues, but I do. There are a couple that I do have on my list, but there's one where I'm thinking maybe it's time to just let it go. Anyway, plus I have too many books. I keep saying this. I don't need to buy more. But like I said, there are two specific items on my wish list right now. The first being Daredevil, Volume 1, Issue 158. This is cover dated May 1979 and is the first Frank Miller drawn issue. And so I have a run of Daredevil comics from issues 156 through 284. I don't recall why I decided that 156 would be the start of my Daredevil run. This was something that happened years ago. But I had slowly gathered those earlier issues of my run, but I can't get 158 for what I think is a good price. I could easily spend some money and get the issue, but having read the issue on the Marvel app, I don't feel compelled to get it now. At least at the prices that I have seen it being offered for. And more recently, I've been eyeing the. I think it's. I think there's a Daredevil, Frank Miller Daredevil omnibus, and that contains that issue. So if I get that, I just may dump those those single issues that I have. But we shall see. What I do, one thing that I do really want, and if I ever can find it for a reasonable price, I will get it, because this is the JLA Avengers Collector's Edition hardcover that was released in 2004. I love that series for obvious reasons. Kurt Busiek, George Perez. I have the original 4 issues. I've always wanted that in a collected edition, so I could just pull it off the shelf and read it whenever I wanted to. And this collector's edition has the collection of those issues, and then I think there's an extra book, or maybe the collection itself has extra materials, right? And so I just want that. I really want that, and I've been trying to find a copy of that for years. Occasionally, it'll show up in places that I watch for such a thing, but it's just ridiculous. I looked at it the other day, and I could get it at the low end is about $300 for that. I've seen it for $400, $500, $600. It's ridiculous, and I get it. Supply and demand. The great man left us, and people want his work, and so I even tried to get the that limited edition softcover that they put out, but that goes for almost as much as that collector's edition hardcover, sometimes more. I saw, at least early on. I don't know what it's going for now, but I really want this specifically. I want the hardcover edition, so I keep looking. Let's see here. These are not comic books, but these are definitely on my wish list. And these are replacement. One of them is a replacement copy of my lost George Perez, again, new Teen Titans poster from 1980 something. I bought it when it originally came out, and it was on my wall for years. And then when we moved to actually, I think where I am now, it disappeared. I don't know if it disappeared in the move or if it was the casualty of the break-in in our storage unit, a few months after we moved here. But yeah, I don't have it, and it breaks my heart. My heart aches for that particular poster. And then the other one is the Keith Giffen drawn Legion poster, that big thing featuring all the characters that ever appeared in the Legion. So I would love to have both of those on my wall. Oh, I think I said earlier that this is the next to last Sergeant America. This is the penultimate voicemail from Sergeant America.
Hey, I got to ask you, do you read anything in the bathroom? And if you do, I mean, have you ever had anyone's borrowed material? I'm just wondering. By the way, can I have my issue of Batman 500 back? Oh, no other questions. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
All right. So, reading in the loo. I would never admit this to anybody. So, everybody else, stop listening. Sarge, just you and me, right? Okay? This is between you and me. Because you're such a good FOP, friend of the pod. I feel like I can be honest with you, Sarge. Yes, I do. Yeah. I mean, what are you going to do? The bathroom's a boring place. You're just, you're sitting there. Who knows for how long? God, I can't believe I'm saying this stuff. Yeah. So, and now, now you're not going to want to borrow my comics or, Batman 500. As far as that issue, Sarge, goes, you mean the one that's part of the Nightfall storyline with Phobats standing over a defeated Bane on the cover drawn by Kelly Jones? I haven't seen it. Sorry. Okay, I wanted to touch on some feedback I got in other places. For example, Apple Podcasts. I almost said apple pie for some reason. I'm thinking of that crumble cookie. I may have actually talked about these before, but I don't have a specific recollection. And my notes, my Google Docs notes, apparently not the best for some of the stuff. Anyway, I will. I have a couple things here, and this is a reminder. Please, if you haven't done so, go to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review. I would really appreciate that, and supposedly it helps get people or visibility to the show. I would not mind that at all. Anyway, I have here. I'm pretty sure I may have actually read this one before. That's okay. From Moonchild, says, great show, great cast, who really understands the comic book industry. Highly recommended. And then from Demon JK, a podcast favorite, thoughtful, personal, and wide-ranging episodes are a delight every time they appear in my feed. This is highly recommended to serious fans of the art form, which, wow, that's quite the compliment. Thank you. On Podcast Addict, that particular website, not everyone cares for how I do things. However, this person left this review. I've tried listening to this podcast several times and can't finish an episode. So this person's latest attempt was a repeat of the commentary on Star Trek: The Motion Picture. The host clearly doesn't do much, if any, research before he starts watching the movie, which, for a commentary, that was kind of the point. Although I feel like I did do some research. I even had my iPad with me with stuff with notes on it. Anyway, apparently I did do a good job conveying that. Let's see here. Any comments on plot holes, in quotes, plot holes that are nothing of the sort? I don't. I don't want to argue, but I don't recall saying anything about plot holes in the motion picture. I might have been commenting about the plot, but Yeah, I really don't remember saying anything about plot holes there. I don't think that there's really plot holes in that movie, but anyway, I could be wrong. It's a long time ago, and I didn't go listen to the episode. Anyway, there you go. And then finally, this person says, let's see, this lack of research on his topic plagues his other subject matter as well, and it's off-putting. I don't recommend it. Well, okay. I will agree that there have been episodes that are not very good, and it's because I did not take good notes, and so I've learned from that. So, unfortunately, this person probably didn't get to the later episodes and experience what I feel is an improvement to the show, where I'm taking notes and I'm trying to do a better job at it. So, anyway, I'm sharing this because. I want people to know that if you're leaving comments and or leaving feedback, I take this stuff in and where it's appropriate, I try to address those things. I want to be a better podcaster. One, and two, I want to be a better comic book reader and commenter. Anyway, so there you go. And then finally on Podcast Addict, there was another comment, really short. They simply say, "Great guy, great podcast." So thank you for that comment. This is from Splattergeist. I love that name. All right. I also have a couple things from some creators that I got on, I think it was Twitter. So from Tommy Rodolfi, I should say, who is the creator of Marilyn's Monsters, the graphic novel, which was one of my favorite things that I read a few years back. George from Meanwhile the Podcast and I covered this on episode 199 from September 2021. Anyway, Tommy said, "Nothing can make me happier than this." And Tommy thanked both George and myself for our loving look at Marilyn's Monsters, and I will always recommend that book to folks because I think it's a great, differently approached biocomic, if you will. So I need to go reread that. So in fact, this, and again, I apologize if I'm repeating myself when I talked about this book before, but this is one of those books that I read digitally because it came in a Humble bundle that I bought, and it's so good that I went and bought the print version of it. So, okay, and then next up, and finally for creator feedback, I have Tom Krajewski, who is the co-writer of the primer young adult graphic novel book that Madison and I covered on episode 218 from May of 2022. Tom said, I just realized it's Tommy Rodolfi and Tom Krajewski. I got a couple Toms here. Thank you for such a wonderful deep dive into our graphic novel. So yeah, so I when creators see this, and I don't believe I tagged these people in my post to that, so somehow they're finding it. And then they respond with such kind words that if I could get sentimental, it really fills my heart with joy. So I really appreciate that. All right, here we go. The final thing here in the Quemments episode, the final voicemail from Sergeant America. Take it away, Sarge.
Hey, Eric, it's Invisible Boy. I know just hearing my voice, you probably think I'm in the room, but I'm not. Haha. Just kidding, Eric. It's really Sergeant America and Private Peanuts over here, too. And we just wanted to tell you we love the podcast. We hope you keep it up. Enjoy your night. Bye-bye.
So the Invisible Boy thing, I'm sure that Sarge is commenting on the, what was it, episode 39? 38? No, it had to be 39. Of the Legion Project podcast, where Peter and I went on and on about Invisible Kid being in a scene, but he has to be there for various reasons, but you don't see him on the page for I don't know what reasons, why the artist didn't draw him there. But our retcon of it, our no prize explanation is that he's there, you just can't see him. Oh my god. So yeah. Anyway, that made me laugh, Sarge, and it still does actually when I think about it. So anyway, thank you, Sarge, for all these voicemails, for entertaining me, and thank you, Private Peanut, as well. So thank you for providing the inspiration for this episode, and I really appreciate your support, which of course goes for everyone who contributed to this. For all the questions and comments, keep it coming. This is so much fun to do this. So I would love to get more voicemails, especially to play. But if you want to send me text-based questions or comments, feedback on the platforms where the episodes are hosted, or that you can access them, that's great too. Obviously, you can email me at longboxreview@gmail.com. I mentioned the text / voicemail number, which is 208-953-1841. I'm on social media. I'm on Mastodon. I'm on Spoutable now. Twitter, of course, Hive Social, Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr. Although I listed the in the order in which I'm kind of actually I should have flipped two of these in the order in which I'm engaging most in. So there you go. If you go to Tumblr, it's there's not much there. I check it, but I don't really spend a lot of time there. But I do spend a lot of time on Mastodon now. So really, it's Mastodon and Twitter, and then Spoutable. Anyway, there you go. You can message me there, or just reply to the posts that I stick there. There's always the website where all my posts, all the podcasts, all of the comic book related materials that I put there, such as the I'm covering the Alex Ross Justice series, the 12-issue maxi series. When did that come out? I don't remember the year. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I'm covering that. I just started posting my reading log for the month. So instead of doing the pull list reviews that I have been doing, I've been putting that on the website now. Just real quick thoughts about the books that I've read. So all that stuff is at longboxreview.com. And as always, thanks for listening. Thanks for contributing. I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.